I've got something for you today, but it's going to require you being strapped into a runaway train, hurtling towards the abyss, and whenever you think that you're going to be able to get off and escape, you're not. What we've got is We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. It says on the cover here, likely the next Game of Thrones. That can mean a lot of things because the Game of Thrones is this big culture bomb that's been dropped. Definitely gonna get into it. I'm gonna do some drawing, obviously. That's what I do. If you've read the book, you can probably guess who this guy is. So here we go on the back. The war is over, the enemy won. That's the setup. It is dark, grim, brutal. Say when you're reading The Witcher, there's a airiness to it. There's a romance to it. There's none of that. Absolutely none of that. And I kind of love it. The setting itself is fantasy, but it's interesting. There's certain aspects to it that I really quite enjoyed. And after reading that the author has lived all over the place, he's lived in Hong Kong and Dubai, all over the world. And that, I think, has really informed the setting because it has this feeling of being just bits coming in from all over the place, which I dig it. I really appreciate that. There's so much ambiguity in the writing, even on a descriptive level. I found it really odd and a really strange decision. When it comes to the characters and the setting, and as you're reading, you realize that there's not a lot of really descriptive language about these things. So much of it is left ambiguous and foggy and hazy, so you, the reader, are filling in the blanks. And I kind of appreciate that. And that actually leads into, is it the next Game of Thrones? Because when you have that open-ended thing, it makes it so much easier to say develop for a series, movie, whatever. But I don't know if that's entirely a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, there's enough there where you can start to build something, but at the same time, subconsciously, I'm waiting for him to tell me what these things or these people actually look like in this kind of stuff. And so because of that, my subconscious is hesitating building a picture of somebody because I'm waiting for it to change. So I found that that's just maybe a me thing. I don't know, but it was a little bit weird. Either way, you can see how it can be developed very easily into a series. So there's a hook with the Game of Thrones things right there. The grim factor, the darkness factor, the bleakness factor, the body count factor, the characters dying left and right. You get attached to somebody, they die off. And it's not just pure shock value or any of this kind of stuff. It's not just killing people and to yank the rug out from underneath you to keep you on your toes, although it does do that. But it feels like there's a purpose to it, and it creates such a sense of unease. There were so many moments in the book where he had me, where I was there, I was hooked, and then there was a rug pull. It never felt cheap, it always served a purpose, and they actually just resulted in me kind of white knuckling it a little bit more. So it worked. A huge part of the wrapping that this book is in is this moral ambiguity with the characters. Some people, yeah, they're clearly evil, they're clearly bad, they're clearly sinister, but others you think are good, and you're rooting for them, but then they're put in a situation where they have to make some awful decision, and then it throws the whole thing out the window because there is no good choice to be made. And what would you do? And it's extremely complex, and it's extremely well done. And so you end up not looking at it as just a bunch of miserable, hateable people. I don't really see it like that. I see it as people who don't have the luxury of being good. And so you have characters that are in a state of occupation. And some of them are going to say, you know what, I'm going to strap some bombs to myself and go take care of these people. And you know what, if I end up killing some of my own people, well, you know, they shouldn't have been associating with them, and they have what's coming to them. And I'm going to do it for the greater good. Whew, it's that kind of stuff. It gets really, really messy, literally, and really, really complicated. And these are your heroes, maybe. I found that quite surprising, that he went there, and hats off to him for doing it, because it was handled really, really well. And you as the reader, you're kind of left in this position of like, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but how could you? Anyway, runaway train, right? You're strapped in and you can't let go. So many of the protagonists, and you have to put that in quotes, are in a state of occupation. The war's over, they lost, here they are. And some of them, they weren't all that thrilled with the way their state was before the war. And so they're kind of looking at this as an opportunity in a way to continue the destruction to rebuild something new, sort of this anarchist sort of mentality in a way. And so you've got these conflicts as well with hierarchy and order, and how do you reconcile these two things when you have a singular entity that you both need to unify against, and how do you come together? Different ideologies, these kinds of things. It's very good. It's very good. And one of the things that really helps with the pacing as far as that white knuckle runaway train thing is it's broken down into days. So you've got day 1, day 2, day 3, and it's just moving at a really good clip. And so it's very fast paced. It's very cinematic. And I hate bringing in filmic language, but it really does move at a certain kind of pace that we're used to from our just innate understanding of filmic language at this point as a society. We all kind of understand cinematic pacing, and this sort of follows that, which is another thing that really lends itself to being developed into a series. So it only makes sense. To me, that's what I see, which is good. It's not a bad thing. It just means like that he knows what's up. It serves the purpose of the work. So is it the next Game of Thrones? Like Glenn Cook suggests, you would enjoy it. You would like it if you came off of Game of Thrones. Definitely pick this up if you enjoyed that kind of stuff. It's got the multi-character bleakness, body count, all that adult kind of situation. It's grim, it's dark, it's violent, it's all of that. So in that sense, yes. The beauty of this, though, is that it's done. It's a trilogy and it's wrapped up. Is it the next Game of Thrones TV series? Well, one thing, too, that this has going for it, being completed, is that they can't mess up the story because you have the books right here. So if they do it, at least you've got his story completed and you've got an end game involved, and you can wrap it up properly. So this has an edge in that sense. You won't have this peak and then this great fall that you had with Game of Thrones. I'm definitely going to read the next 2 books in this. I'm curious to see just how brutal it gets. I quite dig it. So is this book Tarantino crossed with David Gemmell, as Peter McLean, author of Priest of Bones, has to say? Yeah, but it's neither. It's neither of those two. I think that's kind of an odd comparison, but you know what? Those 2 names are great names, so I would absolutely put on the back of the book if I was a publisher. So, but you're going to get neither of those things. Tarantino's funny. This isn't really funny, and David Gemmell is kind of light, and it's fantasy, but it's not like this is just a different level of bleak, I think. I hate comparing stuff, and there's no such thing as doing like for like in this kind of way because it's 2 different things. However, is it potentially the next really bleak epic fantasy series on some subscription service type Netflix thing or Amazon or whatever? Yeah, and I think it could probably be really, really good, and it would probably end better than Game of Thrones. However, book-wise, I think if you're a fan of the Game of Thrones genre, you will like this. There were moments when I was reading this when I thought of the Red Wedding, and I thought, oh, this is a Red Wedding moment, but way worse. Way worse. There's moments of that. So I did actually think of Game of Thrones when I was reading this. So We Are the Dead, Mike Shackle. I'm on to the next one. I'm doing it. I'm in. You should be too. So you guys tell me in the comment section below what I should read next. And here's the next video. I don't know, there's a video in here somewhere. Go check it out.